Before we get to that, for 2,000 years, we carried the burden of victimization and got absolutely no payback for it. Until the 1960s. And what happened in the 1960s in the West, in the United States, in Western Europe, is that Western culture discovered the victim. And the victim became noble. So much so that in the United States, all kinds of groups began to vie over the title of who suffered more. And there was a period that didn't add luster to either side, in which Jews and blacks argued about who really suffered more. And that was very much a 1960s argument. In Western Europe, of course, because of the dual moral burden of the Shoah and colonialism, the generation of 1968 championed the victim. Woody Allen became wildly popular in Europe, not just in the United States. The Schlemiel becomes a cultural hero, inconceivable before the 60s. And what happens at the same time is the Six-Day War. Israel cheats the diaspora out of the payback. Just when it finally becomes cool to be a victim, Israel comes along and just wipes 2,000 years of, cleans the slate. And the Jewish people initially doesn't realize that, including most Jewish liberals and leftists. They don't quite realize it initially. It takes time for that to seep in because there was this overwhelming sense of pride and relief that the victory brought to Jews from across the political spectrum. As we go on, as the occupation goes on, as it becomes more and more clear that it's uncomfortable in certain circles now to be Zionist, pro-Zionist, because Zionism is the victimizer for these circles, then you have the phenomenon of some Jews beginning to turn on Israel for the wrong reason, for a reason that suits their comfort level and not for objective reasons. And one way in which we see this playing out very subtly is the difference in which the Holocaust is commemorated in the diaspora and in Israel. The Holocaust is commemorated in the diaspora as the Jews as victims. And the post-Holocaust era of Jewish empowerment tends not to be as celebrated. The narrative tends to end, here is what happened to the Jews, and look at what's happening to other victims, and we need solidarity of victims, and we always have to remember. That's where it tends to end. Here, of course, the narrative ends with Tzahal. That's really where the trajectory moves. And in a deeper level, it is really an argument between the diaspora and Israel over what is the source for Jewish safety in our time. In an era where the West celebrates the victim, is the source of Jewish safety truly in Jewish power? Or perhaps it is in a return to Jewish powerlessness. And that, I believe, is one reason why we are seeing the emergence today of a strong diasporist impulse. An unconscious fear that Jewish power may actually be endangering the diaspora. And we're going to see that become more and more explicit, I believe, in the coming months, not the coming years. The more that Israelis like me are warmongering in the media for an attack on Iran, the more the diasporists are going to say, well, these lunatics over there are endangering the diaspora. They are drawing the jihadists against us. And we're going to see that made explicit. And I think to some extent we're already there. The last point I'll make in this in the context of Israel and Jewish power today, is that it is a testament to the extraordinary success of how Israel has psychologically empowered the Jewish people, that some Jews today can actually long for powerlessness. And that's something I think that, again, attests to the success of Zionism.